Hello there, bitch. Are you comfortable right now? I doubt it. Wrists and ankles chained, gagged, probably blindfolded. You are disoriented and scared too, I would imagine. Perfectly normal under the circumstances. For a little while, at least, you need to get your shit together and listen to this tape. It is very relevant to your situation. I'm going to tell you, in detail, why you have been kidnapped, what's going to happen to you, and how long you'll be here. I don't know the details of your capture, because this tape is being created July 23rd, 1993, as a general advisory tape for future female captives. The information I'm going to give you is based on my experience dealing with captives over a period of several years. If, at a future date, there are any major changes in our procedures, the tape will be upgraded.
But we also need to work through our legislative process to contact our legislators, both state and federal legislators, our state representatives and federal representatives, to work to abolish the death penalty. I mean, this is what the Holy Father, and I think rightly, is suggesting, that in the modern world, especially in developed countries, that the death penalty no longer serves the purpose that the Church traditionally thought it could.
Now, you are obviously here against your will. Totally helpless. Don't know where you're at. Don't know what's going to happen to you. You're very scared or very pissed off. I'm sure that you've already tried to get your wrists and ankles loose. No, you can't. Now you're just waiting to see what's going to happen next. You probably think you're going to be raped, and you're fucking sure right about that. Our primary interest is in what you've got between your legs. You'll be raped, thoroughly and repeatedly, in every hole you've got. Because, basically, you've been snatched and brought here for us to train and use as a sex slave. Sound kind of far out? I suppose it is to the uninitiated, but we do it all the time. It's going to take a lot of adjustment on your part, and you're not going to like it a fucking bit. But I don't give a big rat's ass about that. It's not like you're going to have any choice about the matter. You've been taken by force, and you're going to be kept and used by force.
There's this whole notion that the Holy Father changed the Church's teaching on the death penalty. It's not so much change as development of doctrine, we would say. So we came to a deeper understanding of what this means. So in moral theology, we've always understood that the state has the authority to execute violent offenders. It's a notion of protection of the defenseless, so it's a form of self-defense. Pope John Paul II, Pope St. John Paul II, very much was moving us to a deeper understanding, though, in his encyclical Evangelium Vitae, the Gospel of Life, about the intrinsic quality of life in each and every individual and how that life, that right to life, even for the most egregious criminal, cannot be violated or cannot be forsaken, cannot be diminished. So, in writing Evangelium Vitae, John Paul II talked about how, with this intrinsic nature of the value of human life, that while the state has the authority to execute criminals, it, in modern circumstances, does not have the right to exercise that authority.
What all this amounts to is that you're going to be kept naked and chained up like an animal, to be used and abused anytime we want to, any way that we want to. And you might as well start getting used to it, because you're going to be kept here and used until such time as we get tired of fucking around with you. And we will, eventually, in a month or two, maybe 3. It's no big deal. My lady friend and I have been keeping sex slaves for years. We both have kinky hang-ups involving rape, dungeon games, etc.
This is the whole point. We are a pro-life people. This is who we are as Roman Catholics. We are a pro-life people. Pro-life means more than anti-abortion. The death penalty can be a very difficult issue, though, because we know that surrounding it many times are very horrific crimes, very heart-wrenching situations. And it can be difficult for some people to come to that notion, to accept that development of doctrine, that even the most egregious criminal still has that right to life.
We found that it is extremely convenient to keep one or two female captives available constantly to satisfy our particular needs. We are very selective when we snatch a girl to use for these purposes. It goes without saying that you have a fine body, and you're probably young, maybe very young, because, for our purposes, we prefer to snatch girls in the early to mid-teens, sexually developed, but still small-bodied, scared shitless, easy to handle, easy to train, and they usually have tight little pussies and assholes. They make perfect slaves.
What you just heard was the voice of David Parker Ray, a sadomasochist who would kidnap women, torture them, sodomize them, electrocute them for days. He would put electrical wires on the nipples of his victims, and he would electrocute them. He would place them onto a gynecologist desk, and he would chain them up onto this desk, and he would put these electrical charges onto the nipples of his victims. He would clip them onto the nipples, okay? I have to be explicit here because some of you sick bastards who come in the face, who come with the face of religion, want to come and argue with me about how we should get rid of the death penalty and we should, we should just show mercy to these monsters. We should not impose justice on these sick bastards. But he would clip these charges, these electrical charges, onto the nipples of his victims, and he would ask them questions. And if they did not answer the question in the manner that he wanted them to answer in, he would electrocute them. He would torture these women for days. David Parker Ray built a trailer. He called it his toy box. The trailer was a torture chamber. He built it in a way where if the women screamed, no one from the outside could hear them because it was soundproof. The guy actually taught mechanics in some prestigious airplane school somewhere. I think it was in Texas or New Mexico or Phoenix. I don't remember. The guy was very knowledgeable in the mechanics of motorcycles, automobiles, and airplanes. And he built this trailer to be a torture chamber. And he would kidnap women, and he would torture them in this trailer for days, rape them, sodomize them, electrocute them. And when it was time for the women to sleep, he would put them in this tiny little chamber, this little claustrophobic chamber, and he would shut the door on them. And they were stuck in this little space that was the size of a coffin. And that's where you slept. And you didn't know if he was going to murder you the next day. And he had accomplices. One of them was his own daughter, Jessie Ray, who he used to lure unsuspecting victims who would not assume that this woman had sinister intentions. And people did not know, people that lived in his area did not know that he was doing this evil. Why? Because he appeared as a nice person. And if you see a photograph of this guy and you didn't know what evil he was doing, you would think that he was some local woodshop teacher. You would think that he was some rancher who could do a delicious barbecue for you. Look at him. He looks like he belongs on CMT. He looks like he belongs on some You Might Be a Redneck stand-up show. But that was the facade. The facade was that he was this nice guy, this nice Southern guy. You know, he grew up on a ranch. He grew up in a strict family. He was raised by his Christian fundamentalist religious grandparents who were very strict. But the reality was far from some kind of Christian belief. This guy had no Christian beliefs. He was a monster. What he was doing was satanic. Supposedly, his father taught him sadomasochism when he was just a young teenager. And supposedly, according to him, he did his first murder when he was about 15 years old. He eventually started a family. He had children, albeit he was a terrible father for obvious reasons. And he began to indoctrinate his daughter into his sadistic ideology, into his ideology of sadism. But I want to say around the year 1986, his own daughter, before she was fully indoctrinated in his cult of sadism, his own daughter reported him to the FBI in New Mexico. She went to the FBI branch in New Mexico, and she told the FBI that her father was kidnapping and torturing women and then trafficking them, selling them to criminals in Mexico. This is what his daughter told the FBI. The FBI then interrogated Mr. Ray, and Mr. Ray gleefully told the FBI about his sick sadomasochistic fantasies, about how he would get off of the idea of murdering a woman, how it would turn him on. These sick sadistic thoughts would turn him on, these thoughts of murder and torture. And the FBI simply concluded the investigation by stating that this person was simply a sadomasochist, and there was no evidence that he was selling women as sex slaves. And they closed it. But they were people who reported him to the police, women who reported him to the police, and nothing happened. And there was one woman, her name was Cynthia Vigil. She was kidnapped by David Parker Ray. She was tortured. She was chained up. And she managed to escape. She somehow got the key from his daughter, Jessie Ray, who at that point was fully indoctrinated into the cult of sadism by her father. But Jessie smashed this woman's head with a lamp. But even after that, this woman managed to get out of the chains. She grabbed an ice pick and she stabbed Jessie Ray in the neck, and she ran out of the torture chamber that was called the toy box. the trailer, the soundproof trailer that David Parker Ray built. And Cynthia Vigil ran. She ran as fast and as hard as she could. And she eventually got to a nearby mobile home. The owner of the mobile home saw her, took her in, gave her a robe because she was naked. The only thing that she had on her was a freaking dog collar and chains. This is the type of evil that we're dealing with here, guy. This is not petty theft. This isn't drug dealing. This isn't just some simple crime that you hear about on cops. This is the most evilest stuff that you can ever imagine. This is at the bottommost depths of sinisterism, the diabolical, and just pure evil. So the owner of the mobile home called the police. The police eventually came, and they went into the trailer. They went into the toy box, as Mr. Ray called it. And in this trailer, they saw the torture chamber. They saw the tools of torture. They saw the what they call the gynecologist desk with the chains. They saw the House of Horrors. And the clip that you heard in the beginning of this video, that's what David Parker Ray would play to the women as an introduction to tell them what they were going to go through. And that was just the first 4 minutes of this clip. The clip in its totality is almost an hour long. I just played for you guys the first 4 minutes because the first 4 minutes pretty much sums up what the rest of the video is. Him telling these women what they're going to go through. They're going to be chained up. They're going to be tortured. They're going to be electrocuted. They're going to be sodomized. I was so depressed after reading this stuff. I honestly find it difficult to find light in this world, knowing that people like David Parker Ray exist. And I wonder why America is so filled with these evils. I wonder why. I mean, I understand Mexico has cartels and those guys do very evil things. I understand that they are murderers in every single country. But I wonder why in America we have such a plethora of stories of people being kidnapped and kept in torture chambers and put through the most horrific things that you would only imagine being in a movie. But you watch films like Silence of the Lambs or Saw, or you watch movies like The Red Dragon, or you watch these types of films. The reality is that a lot of the things in these movies are real. A lot of the things in these films are based on reality. A lot of the things in these films have happened. Women being kidnapped and kept in dungeons or kept in captivity for months as sex slaves. All these things have happened. One thing that I have noticed is that the psychopaths in other countries tend to wait for some kind of disaster to take place so that they can then use the opportunity to indulge in their sadistic desires. A good example of this, Iraq. Iraq under Saddam Hussein didn't have a bunch of serial killers running around like we do in America. But after Saddam was removed and you had a civil war, it didn't take that long for people like ISIS to pop up and to make videos of them putting their victims on meat hooks. And that's one thing that I've noticed. The big difference between the American psychopath or the British psychopath or even the Mexican psychopath and the Middle Eastern psychopath or the European psychopath is that the North American psychopath or the Anglo psychopath doesn't wait. He just pursues his evil. The Middle Eastern psychopath, members of ISIS, etc., they wait. They wait for a civil war. They wait for there to be no government. They wait for there to be some kind of disastrous situation, and then they start doing their evils. But in America, people don't wait. They want to do a torture chamber, they do it. What you heard in the beginning of this video was the voice of David Parker Ray. And it was recorded as an introductory clip for the women to listen to. And now imagine this. You've just been kidnapped. You wake up because the way that you were kidnapped was your drink was spiked in a bar. He put drugs in your drink. Or he just kidnapped you, as was the case with Angelica Montano, who went to Mr. Ray's house just to simply ask for some cake mix. She knocked on the door. Mr. Ray opens the door and grabs her. And before you know it, before she knew it, she was a sex slave. She was just thinking, I'm going to go to this nice man who looks like he could be a rancher. He looks like he could be your local woodshop teacher. I'm just going to ask him for some cake mix because he's such a nice guy. Knocks on the door, and there's Mr. Ray grabbing her, pulling her into the house, and before she knew it, she was a sex slave. Chained up. Luckily, she survived. So you're chained up, and the first thing you hear is this freaking tape. For an hour, almost an hour. Just imagine that. Imagine hearing for almost an hour how you're going to be chained up, how you're going to be a sex slave, how you're going to be sodomized, electrocuted, tortured. Just imagine that. And people wonder why I support the death penalty. People wonder why. This is why. This is why. Because I get so sick within myself of reading these things, of hearing about these things. I can't think of any just punishment other than the death penalty. When the police investigated this freak, this evil monster, they found his devices of torture. They found, for example, this one device that was this elongated piece of what appeared to be metal, and then in the end of it was a ring of nails. He would shove that up the woman's vagina or up her anus. I have to get into explicit detail because all of the abolitionist Christians, be they Catholic, Episcopalian, Methodist, evangelical, or Eastern Orthodox, it doesn't matter because it's all the same quagmire. These heretics, these sickos who call themselves Christians, who come in the name of the cross, will come and say, oh, Mr. Parker, he should be evangelized to. He shouldn't be executed. He should not be given capital punishment because we have to love everybody. Where the hell were you when these women were being tortured? Where the hell are you to help these women? You don't give a shit about them. You just want to defend the evildoer. That's why I say you people are sick. Absolutely sick. But that's the reality, guys. That is the reality. And people like David Parker Ray, these are the people that the Pope wants to defend. These are the people that the Pope defends. Because the Pope came out and said, we should get rid of the death penalty. Well, guess what? Every serial killer who's on death row agrees with you, Mr. Pope. Most of them do. There are some murderers who say that they do deserve death, but they are a very small minority. The Pope comes out and he defends these monsters because these are the types of people that are on death row. The Pope comes out and says, oh, no, remove capital punishment because it's contrary to the gospel, to use his words. And some of you guys want to try to fool me and say, oh, no, the Pope's not against capital punishment. The Pope simply says it's unnecessary. The Pope says that the death penalty, that capital punishment, is contrary to the gospel. And so the Pope is defending these people. no differently than how some lawyer would come out and defend and would defend a freak like this in the name of defending his client. And people wonder why there's so many sickos in America. Just look at the churches, full of sickos, full of sexual predators. Somebody wrote me today in regards to my last video in which I defended the death penalty. This person said that I was self-righteous. This person claimed to be, this person says that they are Eastern Orthodox. And I say that if demanding capital punishment for someone, and this is what I told this person, if demanding capital punishment for someone who kidnaps women, tortures them for weeks, sodomizes them, electrocutes them, if that makes me self-righteous to demand that capital punishment be imposed on such monsters, then I am self-righteous. That's my argument to them. That's my response to them. Because if you can sit there and read all these graphic and gruesome details, and you can read about these egregious crimes, and tell me that these people should not be given capital punishment, there is something wrong with you. And if you say, oh, no, that's what my God teaches, well, I don't worship your God. Your God is the devil. Your God is a monster, because your God defends monsters. But that's who the Pope defends. Monsters. That's who the Pope is defending. Monsters. I can't believe I've come to this point, to be honest with you. I cannot believe that I have come to this point. I used to defend the Catholic Church. I used to fight for the Catholic Church. But then I saw the darkness. I saw the dark side. I met the priests who were predators. I met the priests who were deviants. I met the priests who were covering up for pedophiles. I met them. I saw them. I saw the evil in front of me. And there are people who tell me, Ted, I converted to Catholicism. I've never seen these things. That's unfortunate for you. They say ignorance is bliss. But it's unfortunate that you haven't seen disillusionment. It's unfortunate that you haven't seen the truth. It's like that song by Alanis Morissette. Thank you, disillusionment. Thank you. Thank you. What you listened to in the beginning of this video is the voice of a monster. That's the voice that his victims had to listen to as an introduction to their torture. And it's monsters like this, monsters like David Parker Ray, who are defended by the Catholic Church, defended by people who come in the name of the cross, who come in the name of mercy. Well, I say that you do not come with mercy. I say that you come with a defense of the evilest of the evil. You guys just heard some theology. God bless.